Well, I'm here with Stephen Hager of newidentity.com, and Stephen, that is spelled N-E-U identity.com, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. In a previous conversation, we talked about several pitfalls that an entrepreneur faces, and I'd like to elaborate on how you can overcome those pitfalls as an entrepreneur.
Great. Steve, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the three? This is a test.
Yes, I do. I do. Yes, thank you. The three most important pitfalls, you said I think there were 20, but
Yes.
the three most important pitfalls that an entrepreneur faces are fear. The second one is flying alone, or
Yes.
trying to do everything yourself.
Yes.
And then the third one is poor preparation.
Perfect.
So how'd I do? Perfect. Okay,
Perfect.
good.
You did absolutely great.
So we've identified those pitfalls, but so here's the big question.
Yes.
How do we overcome those pitfalls? How do we get through to the other side?
Well, we're going to use practical neuroscience to do that in
All right.
some very simple steps that I hope everyone can understand, okay?
All right.
So before we address the steps for fear, flying alone, and poor or inadequate preparation, I think it's important to know that how to overcome this not only applies to entrepreneurs, but really to everyone.
Okay.
Okay, so regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur working in a traditional job, a student, or staying at home, or retired doing volunteer work, fear, flying alone, and poor preparation are barriers to success in anything.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
But they're big ones for entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So I hope that you and our audience can see the relevance for everything in life.
Sure.
Okay. And it addresses our neurodiversity, which is how we're different, and it taps into the power of neuroplasticity, which means we can change. It's how we built who we are now. So neuroplasticity built us to where we are, so if we don't like it, we can change it.
You know, it's interesting you're talking about that, and I think about, as a kid I used to watch Popeye.
Oh my.
And you remember what he used to say? I am what I am.
I am what I am.
Yeah, so basically the idea was I can't change, and I think people probably victimize themselves with that same kind of thinking. What you're saying though, neuroplasticity tells us that we can change the way we think. And
neuroplasticity works from the time you're in the womb and you're starting to build neural pathways from the experience in your mother's womb, from music and the energy, to when you enter the physical world and start to take in sensory information and process it. The power of neuroplasticity works until the very, very end.
Okay.
Okay, it's a never-ending process. People who say you can't, I'm too old to learn, I'm too old to change, that's an attitude. It's not a truth. It's a myth.
The reality is
they're
saying I don't want to change.
I want to say that. I want to make that very, very clear. And it's backed by solid neuroscience.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's get back to these three pitfalls.
Okay.
And we said there's fear, flying alone, and poor preparation. Yeah. So how do we overcome
each one?
Each one. Let's go one by one.
Well, let's take the biggie. The biggie is fear.
That makes sense.
We all know what fear is. I want people to understand, I want you to understand, I want all of you to understand that fear is an emotion. For every thought, for every experience, the brain creates a chemical, a chemical that gives you the sensation, different sensations of fear. And it comes from our programming. It comes from what our mothers and fathers told us, and our teachers, people we worked with. So fear is an emotion. It's not real. It seems real because we feel it. We say, well, I feel it. I feel it. But the actuality is it's not real. It's a thought or a program that creates an emotional response
yes.
in the brain. Now, when it kicks in, it can shut you down. In fact,
a paralyzing effect.
That was exactly the word I was thinking,
Okay,
Steve.
okay.
It's paralyzing. It's paralyzing. So what do you do? What do you do? There are some very, very simple steps that you can take.
What are those steps?
Okay.
I know you're going to tell us.
Yeah, I am. The first thing for an entrepreneur, or anyone for that matter, is focus on your vision. Focus on what you want to accomplish. Focus on the positive desired outcomes that you want. All right?
Okay, sure.
So for an entrepreneur, it might be the successful enterprise. For someone at home who's retired, the outcome might be to build a sustainable retirement program or an income flow, a sustainable income flow so they can feel safe. So the first thing is focus on the goal.
Okay.
Focus on the vision.
Having
now,
a clear picture of that desired outcome.
Exactly. So what that does, first of all, as a practical matter, is you can't think about two things at the same time. So when you think about that, it distracts you.
Okay.
All right? And then that passion that's here and here then becomes the driving force. So number one, you focus on what you want, not what you don't want. If you focus on what you don't want, you're going to get more of the same.
Okay.
You have to focus on what you truly, truly want. So, after you've done that, then think about and plan the next step. Any step. In other words, subduing this.
Okay. So
Subdue-
just putting action to
Yeah.
the dream, just some kind of action
Yeah.
to the dream.
I mean, it could be, well, you're having a marketing problem, so you call no customer. All right. So you plan to take the next step, and you take the next step. Now,
Okay.
as soon as you take a step, you're moving, right? Mm-hmm. And you're experiencing something.
Right.
So you can tell immediately when you take that first step whether you're going in the right direction or not. Is it the pathway to your desired outcome? Now, when you're not moving and you're hanging on and you're paralyzed, how can you change direction?
You can't.
It's impossible. So if you want to change direction, you got to be moving.
Yeah, it's that I've heard that saying. You can only steer a moving ship.
Exactly.
If it's not moving, you can't steer it.
Exactly. So you evaluate if it's working. And if it's working, you take another step in that direction. If it's not working, you take another step. So it's an experimentation process. And of course...
But it's about putting action to the dream.
Yes. And also, there's of course best practices that you can determine. And so you always want to keep moving. So it's a never-ending process. So if you trust your brain, and you trust this that we covered last time, your caring nature, couple the two together, you're bound to succeed. So the joy is not in reaching the outcome. The joy is each step along the way. So that's how you overcome fear.
That's super. So then the second one,
I
know you're going to unpack that for us. The second one is flying alone or trying to do everything yourself. So how do we overcome that one?
Okay. First of all, you want to pick people who are different than you.
All right,
to work with you. Remember the analogy we had last time that entrepreneurs tend to want to be the pilot, the co-pilot, the flight crew, the ground crew.
I remember that.
You know, and the ticket counter. So you want to pick people who are different than you. Now, the caveat to that is that you want to select people who have similar values and share your passion.
Okay.
They have to share your passion, and they have to have similar values. So let me give an example.
So then you end up with continuity but diversity.
You need diversity so that you cover the whole field. So let me give you some concrete examples.
Okay.
All right. So if you tend to be very global and big picture oriented, doesn't it make sense to have some co-pilots who are sequential and logical and understand processes and procedures and detail and accuracy? Okay. And if you're technically oriented, that's a strength. Doesn't it make sense to find people who are good in marketing and finance?
Yes.
So you want to pick people different than you, okay? If you're an extrovert, find people who are more introverted and introspective.
Okay.
Because extroverts tend to be, you know, ready, fire, aim, they're out there.
Right, right.
And the introspective person's kind of sitting back and looking around and kind of processing.
Or maybe noticing some things.
Exactly,
Okay.
noticing the things that the extrovert may not be picking up.
Okay.
And also, if you are a very patient person, isn't it good to have someone impatient?
Yeah, so it has more urgency to
have
drive
some
things.
more
Yeah,
urgencies.
that makes sense.
You know, and if you're impatient and kind of impulsive and just kind of do the ready, fire, aim thing, isn't it good to
Yes.
have a patient person to say, hey, well, let's think about that for a minute. So you combine it. So you get the idea.
Yes.
You get the idea on flying alone.
So then there was the third one.
The
So we
third
talked
one,
about
yeah.
how to overcome fear. We talked about how to overcome the flying alone tendency.
Yes.
Then the third one is poor preparation. And so how do we overcome that?
Okay. Well, this is sort of an integration of the other two.
Okay.
And this is kind of a left brain thing to start with, more of a logical kind of approach to it. You'll want to start with making an inventory on paper, your computer, flip chart of all the knowledge, skills, competencies, different thinking that you need for the enterprise. You
Okay.
start with that. Okay, so do you need people who are good in communications, marketing, technical expertise, IT, social media, all those things, all right. Do you need a combination of global and sequential thinking? All of that. What are the knowledge pods that you need to have a successful enterprise? And that shouldn't take long. That should maybe
Sure.
take 10, 15
At
minutes.
least the fundamentals.
Yeah,
you could
get
just
it down.
Jot
Yeah,
them all down.
Yeah. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and you bring together a couple trusted advisors and make the list. What do you think
Sure,
we need?
sure.
What's the inventory? So the second thing, and I think this is really important, establish a compelling vision. A compelling vision and outcomes that you want. Now, why is that important? Because it keeps you motivated. It keeps other people motivated who are working with you, and it will motivate and inspire the customer as well.
Yes.
So you want something compelling as to what you're about, what you're attempting to do, and how you were attempting to go about it, and how that all comes together into that vision. So that ignites not only your mind and hearts, but the minds and hearts of other people as well.
It occurs to me as you're talking about having a vision and having certain things that you want certain end results, then it gives you something to celebrate.
Oh yes, absolutely.
If it's just kind of a vague goal that, well, we don't really have a way of measuring when we've hit the target,
Yes.
then, or maybe it could be financial, but I think, don't people want something more than just a financial target? Don't they want something more than that?
Oh, absolutely. They do. They want something that satisfies this and this. And one of the common words is fun. So, fun doesn't mean that you're playing in a sandbox or letting balloons go necessarily or partying.
Right.
Fun is also enjoying what you're doing.
Sense of reward.
A sense of reward, teamwork, cooperation, collaboration. You're not having fun necessarily when you're competing. You may think, but that's a dead-end street. More cooperation, collaboration is going to create a spirit of community and of fun. And the brain responds best when it's having fun because it's feeling safe. When you're feeling unsafe and the environment is hostile, the brain's going to start shutting down again, and then fear kicks in.
Right.
So you put your finger on a key point about celebrating success. And celebrating success can be a daily thing, a little thing, successfully accomplishing one step.
Yes.
You can celebrate everything with a high five, you did a great job, give yourself a pat on the back. So the next step is, remember, we did the inventory, okay? We got the compelling vision, and we know why that's important. The second thing is, what do you bring to the table? So you have this list, your inventory list. What do you bring to the table? So you could click it off. I bring this, 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 this. Then you look at it and say, is this the best use of my time? So you might want to take some things off and triage it.
Yes.
Then there's other things that are going to be left, right? There's going to be other things that don't have check marks. Then you find the people who share your passion, your values, love the vision, and want to join with you, that have those skill sets.
Boy, that makes so much sense.
That is so perfect. So that's the way you be prepared, so that when you make the leap, you're not screaming as you're going down before you hit the ground. You don't crash and burn.
That's right.
So you go down in a gentle parachute, right, or a hot air balloon. You make a gentle landing, you get out, and then you work with your team.
Boy, that makes a lot of sense.
And that's all practical neuroscience.
I think it's so helpful, Stephen, for people to not only know those 3 primary pitfalls that an entrepreneur faces, but how to overcome them.
Indeed.
Stephen, that's just so helpful. Thank you for joining us today.